I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual.
起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加高一点传是一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated. Okay, so the first question was the Dao approach to deities. The second question was, is the Tao conscious? Like, is it intelligent? Is it sentient? And the third question was, because we were discussing Qing Jing, which starts out making this very strong point about the Tao being without emotions. It's a point, by the way, that will be reiterated in chapter 79 that we will discuss. But anyhow, the question was, the Tao, isn't that the source for everything and everybody, the source of creation? So if the Tao is without emotions, then where do emotions come from? So I think we definitely hit upon a very good topic last time when we talked about Qing Jing, when we talked about the nature of the Tao. The Tao is not a deity. The Tao is without emotions. The Tao doesn't play favorites. The Tao without feelings. So it just works like a natural law. So we had that discussion from the Qing Jing, and this led to a bunch of follow-up questions. So if you guys recall, the original question was, can one follow the Tao in a secular path, no gods, no temples? That was the original question. So quite naturally, one of the follow-up questions was about the Dao approach to deities. So there's a bunch of deities that people venerate in Dao. So if it is possible to practice the Tao without these gods, then how do people worship these gods? How do people pray to them, etc.? What is the approach? So let me pull up that question. What is the Dao approach to gods? And here's the answer. So because we have so many questions, we have 3 questions this time. I'm going to try to keep the answer as brief as possible. So the short answer is that it does vary because people come into the Tao at different levels in their spiritual understanding. So there's definitely people in Dao who are in what Bill and I call the transaction mode. What is that? That means sort of like you going to a vending machine or maybe walking into 7-Eleven to buy something. Your interaction with the deities become like a transaction. Like, oh God, I promise to be good. I'll be a good boy if you help me with XYZ, if you protect me, if you give me your blessings, etc. So that when you actually look deeper into it, you would have to admit that the whole scheme is a little bit ludicrous because you are assuming that whatever deity you are praying to is automatically agreeing to the deal. Well, do you really know that for a fact? What if God or a particular deity is thinking, what? In exchange for 2 weeks of good behavior, you want me to help you win the lottery? I'm not going to do that, So it's possible that the deity may not agree to the transaction, but of course, the assumption is always rather one-sided. So for people in that transaction mode, the purpose of worship and prayer is just to request divine protection and favors. Particular God will help me pass this exam that's coming up, or help me get a girlfriend or something like that. Whatever the request may be, it's all transactions. But that doesn't cover everybody in Dao, because the idea in cultivating the Tao is that you have to understand more, you have to figure out more about life, and then use that knowledge to help you become a better person, more spiritually attuned, and wiser. So at a higher level, you begin to understand how to create your own destiny. Walking the path correctly brings good things to life naturally. Like, you don't have to force it. You don't have to, this will happen even if you pray to no gods. Because the Tao is impersonal, because the Tao is like a natural law, if you follow the path correctly, good things will happen to you in your life, as if the deities are granting you your request and providing you with protection. So when you get to that level of understanding, realize that you don't have to force a transaction on a particular deity. You just have to stick to your path. You just have to do what you know to be right. Then these gods take on a different role. No longer the vending machine, no longer the 7-Eleven where you go and buy your coffee and your pastries and whatnot. The gods become avatars of virtues that you wish to cultivate for yourself. So at this point, I want to ask Bill to also provide some input, because this is probably one of the questions that he gets asked most often.
It is, and believe it or not, you just granted me 2 pieces of spiritual understanding. I know why I can't get a girlfriend, and I need to go to 7-Eleven more often.
Ah, okay. Glad to help. My work is
actually
done.
I love that explanation that you use. It's wonderful and so precise. The thing is, and I catch myself doing this too, it's so easy to personify the Tao because it acts almost as if it were intelligent. You know, what I tell people is, if they're expecting to find a God that kind of looks like Santa Claus with a shepherd's crook saying, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant," I think they're going to be disappointed. But still, we look at the various peerages of the Tao with names and labels that we can comprehend. You know, we talk about Lao Mu, which is the nurturing aspect, or Wu Ji, the void, or the Tao itself is the provider of everything that we need. And although the Tao itself couldn't care less, it's still much easier for us to comprehend something that we can stick a label on, and human beings have done that since the beginning of time. I tell people that I personally do not believe in a personified God, even though I talk about the Tao in personified terms. I should probably try to do a better job of not doing that. But that notwithstanding, we all kind of need something to hook our faith into. And most people here in America have grown up in that concept or learning of eternal glorification or punishment, of heaven and hell and God and Satan, that you kind of have to relate it to something, at least to help them to understand, you know, what most likely is not there. I practice the Yiguan Dao teachings, the teachings of Lao Tzu, as my religion. I don't have a personified God at the end of my spiritual practice somewhere. But yet I still do the rituals in front of the figurines of the Buddhas and Bodhisattva, because they represent the virtues that I'm trying to emulate and become. Does that make sense? Yep,
sounds good to me. And I think, you know, it makes it more real to people.
Bill, when you tell them about how you personally approach this particular question. Like this is what you do every single day.
Yes.
So let me share with everyone a couple of examples of these deities that are avatars of the virtues that one wishes to cultivate. I have two examples. That's all I have from truedao.org. So I'll go through them quickly, and then we'll move on to the next question. Hope you don't mind, Bill, but after we're done with this question, I'll go ahead and mute your phone to prevent any accidental sounds from disrupting.
If it's okay with you, I need to bail here. My wife and daughter just took off for Virginia, and I have to deliver Aaron to college.
Hey, that's serious business. So we'll talk to you again next Sunday.
Thank you so very much.
Alrighty. So let's move on. I have a couple of examples to share with everyone. This is from truedao.org. So this example is the Maitreya Buddha. So as I said, these become symbols or avatars or representations of virtues that you wish to cultivate for yourself. With Maitreya Buddha, this is also, like I mentioned, I have two examples up on truedao.org. I know that there should be more. In time, there will be more. At least there's now the framework for me to fill out. But let's stick to Maitreya Buddha for a moment. When you see this image, you probably say, oh yeah, that's the fat Buddha, that's the Buddha, that's the laughing Buddha, etc. That's the happy Buddha. So this image is 9 times out of 10 in the West is confused with the Buddha. And now you might say that, well, wait a minute. I thought you just said that this is the Buddha. No, this is the Maitreya Buddha. The Maitreya Buddha is a different entity from the Buddha. The image of the Maitreya Buddha comes from a historical figure in China, a monk. The Chinese at the time knew him as Bu Dai He, which means the monk with the cloth bag, because this portly figure in ancient China always, walked around with this bag full of goodies, sort of like the ancient Chinese Santa Claus, if you will. So Bu Dai He, when he passed away on his deathbed, he revealed that, I may as well tell you guys the truth. I'm actually the manifestation of the Maitreya Buddha. So I came into the mortal realm to basically check out how everybody's doing. So I'm gonna take off now. Catch you guys later. Well, he didn't actually say that, but I'm paraphrasing. So the idea caught on for the Chinese, and this is a historical figure from hundreds of years ago. The idea caught on because the character, the essence of the Chinese is a very happy-go-lucky, very optimistic, very cheerful, upbeat, positive kind of mentality. So they latched onto this image of this fat and happy Maitreya Buddha. Prior to the cloth bag monk, the image of the Maitreya Buddha was a skinny dude. So figurines, statues, drawings, paintings proliferated since that time, depicting the Maitreya Buddha as this big, happy, portly fellow. That's how we ended up with all these Chinese-owned businesses that have like a little statue of the Maitreya Buddha somewhere with incense around it, for good luck, because the size, the girth of the Maitreya Buddha is symbolic of the good life, meaning prosperity and abundance. So business owners want to have the figure of the Maitreya Buddha there to help bring good luck to the business. Now, as the Chinese people emigrated out to all corners of the world, doing businesses in different countries, sometimes they open up a Chinese restaurant. In the United States, it's because the law forbids them to be business owners at one point. So they could only get into the businesses that they could get into, and that included restaurants and laundromats. So they would always have the Maitreya Buddha with them. So the image proliferated in the West as well, leading people to point to that and say, oh, that's the Buddha. And also keep in mind that the Chinese people themselves, they may not be schooled on the history of Buddhism. So they themselves may point to the figurine of the Maitreya Buddha and say, oh yeah, that's the Buddha. That we worship the Buddha. That's the Buddha right there. So that perpetuates the misconception even further. So the actual Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, was not a portly Chinese monk from hundreds of years ago. He was a skinny Indian prince from more than 2,000 years ago, from 2,500 years ago. So a completely different person. So now you know, by virtue of this webinar, that what people point to as the Buddha is in fact the Maitreya Buddha. The Maitreya Buddha in Buddhism is said to be the Buddha of the prophecy. That is, there are prophecies, you may not know this, but there are prophecies in Buddhism that says, that foretell the coming of the Maitreya Buddha at a future time to spread Buddhism across the land. So, yeah, so he was here once before in ancient China as a big fat dude, and then he's going to come again at some point, maybe in a different guise. And indeed, there are many people across the world, around the world, people claim to be the Maitreya Buddha, and they create like a cult, a personality that's like a Maitreya Buddhism sect, and they attract many followers. The reason why there's still that going on is because people do have a thirst for spiritual leadership. Anyhow, there's a lot more details that you can read about that in truedao.org. The symbolic significance of Maitreya Buddha is the happiness, and that happiness is a result of the key characteristics of the Maitreya Buddha. The key characteristics are generosity and tolerance. So it is said, the Chinese expression is 肚大能容, which means big stomach can contain things. That's an expression, sort of like we say, someone has a big heart. That's an expression meaning that someone is very tolerant of dissenting views, other perspectives, live and let live kind of idea. So when you are able to practice tolerance of people who are different from you, that leads to happiness. And generosity, same thing. When you are able to give to others, that's a source of joy. So, and people like dealing with these Chinese business owners that have the Maitreya Buddha because invariably they deliver more value than is asked for them. They deliver beyond expectations, and that's the secret ingredient for the success that they enjoy. Not really such a secret after all. It's just good business practice, and it's all embodied in the statue of the Maitreya Buddha. So remember, if you want to have more of that cultivated generosity, happiness of spirit, that tolerance of other people, then this is a great deity to keep in mind, especially as you go through the rituals. This is an ultimate key to happiness. Okay. Let's talk about my second example. Like I mentioned, I have only a grand total of 2 in truedao.org. So this is the other one. So this is Guan Shen Di Jun, that's the formal title. This man, also a historical figure, originally was known as Guan Yu, where Guan is the family name, the surname, Yu is the given name. So he was the most powerful, the ultimate warrior from Chinese history during the time of the Three Kingdoms. And he later on became like a saint, like a patron saint for martial arts practitioners everywhere. So even today, he is revered by people who study Wushu or Chinese Kung Fu. And in Yiguan Dao, he's also a figure that is very well known and revered, and it's because of the virtues that he embodies, which include honor, loyalty, integrity, justice, courage, and strength. So you can, as you can see in my slide down here. So those that wish to cultivate courage can look to this particular deity to remind themselves that, in order to speak, to act with courage, one must have conviction. The conviction that Guan Shen Di Jun had at the time that he was alive was that he would fight in the war of the Three Kingdoms, in order to promote peace and protect the people, protect civilization. He wanted to bring an end to war. So he was the ultimate warrior because he fought for peace. The only reason why he would fight at all was to bring about peace and prosperity, so nobody would have to fight anymore. So the ultimate warrior was the warrior who would seek an end to warfare. So aside from that, he demonstrated, his integrity, his honesty, his character with everything that he did. So in addition to being like a total badass on the battlefield, he was someone that people knew they could count on 100%. Because of how powerful he was as a warrior, the different lords of the Three Kingdoms period wanted to recruit him. But he has sworn his loyalty to only one particular faction, and that was the faction that he felt would be best for the people. So the saga of the Three Kingdoms, very dramatic, and there are still quite a few movies that are made for that. I would encourage you to look deeper into it. I think you will find it entertaining, and you will also find in Guan Shen Di Jun a very useful reminder for modern life. As we go about living day to day, it's oftentimes very useful to remind ourselves that we need to embody more of the honor that he demonstrated. So this is the other deity. So two examples for the Yiguan Dao approach to deities. Now let's move on to the second question. Is the Tao conscious? Is it sentient? Is it intelligent? Well, that's an intriguing question. So remember, last time we were talking about how the Tao is not a deity. So it doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have emotions, So this is a deeper examination of that. Fine, no emotions, no preferences, no desires. Okay, I understand. But I mean, today we also have examples, like in science fiction, we have examples of robots or androids or machines that are intelligent without emotions, without having feelings, without having preferences or desires. So can the Tao be that way as well? conscious, in a sense, sentient and intelligent? Could it be? Well, so remember, what is the Tao? The Tao is nature. The Tao is that which is natural. So, the question of whether the Tao is conscious or sentient or intelligent, you can also ask it in a different way. Is nature conscious? Is it sentient? Is it intelligent? Remember, we oftentimes will personify nature as Mother Nature. Like, we commit so many offenses in damaging the environment that Mother Nature will at some point indicate her displeasure by inflicting upon us some sort of powerful manifestation like hurricanes. We think in those terms. So here's the bottom line about nature. The more we study nature, the more we are stunned by the beauty and creativity we discover. Everywhere in nature, whether it's the intricate interplay of ecology and environment, or at the microscopic level, how cells work, we discover these mechanisms that are just mind-boggling, that they don't seem like they could just come out of nowhere or by random chance. And that is the reason why some people, even now, are firmly in the camp of intelligent design instead of evolution. However, I don't want you to assume that I'm endorsing, in any sense, intelligent design. I'll talk about why in just a moment. But first, the point that I want to make is that the more you know about nature, the more amazed you become. Like, there's got to be something there. How can all this beauty, how can these amazing things that we see just come out of nowhere? There's got to be some sort of driving mind or consciousness or sentience or intelligence behind it all, right? Well, let me get to my next bullet. So I can certainly agree, and you will probably want to mark this as my opinion. I can certainly agree that there seems to be some kind of universal intelligence in the Tao, if we equate the Tao with nature, with evolution, for instance. Evolution has given rise to all kinds of incredible, amazing, beautiful, unlikely life forms. However, whatever intelligence that is that we discover in nature, it doesn't seem anything near, anything close, anything resembling the human intelligence that we possess. So let me get one more, and then I'll talk about this. This is a question that touches on intelligent design and other controversial topics. So the debate surrounding intelligent design has been going on for quite a few years now. It's a religious position, basically saying that, well, listen, if you walk around out there in the woods and you come upon a piece of rock, for all you know, that rock could have always been there. It's something that was formed by nature, and it was untouched by human hands. So you know that there was no intelligence behind it, behind just a rock or a pebble. But suppose you're walking around and you discover a watch. So you pick up the watch, it's symmetrical, it's something that was put together with a great deal of craftsmanship, with a lot of deliberate elements associated with it. And perhaps you have never seen a watch before in your life, but even in that situation, you can sense that there is a reason, that there is a purpose for this round object that you have picked up. You may not know what it means to keep track of time, but you can see that this intricate thing was something that was created by intelligent hands. So that is the argument behind intelligent design, that when we look at nature itself, when we look at for instance, the microscopic level, and we look at the working of the cell, we see such intricacy that it could not have happened by accident. So that's the pro-intelligent design argument. It argues for an intelligent designer, which is just a different name for God in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Now, the other side of the debate is scientists remain, the vast majority of scientists remain utterly unconvinced by the arguments from intelligent design, and have pointed out how some of the most amazing features in biological entities could have evolved. So the eyes are oftentimes used as an example, on both sides. On the intelligent design side, the proponents will say that, well, look at the eye, look how intricate that is. I mean, it took human beings, centuries, millennia, millions of years before coming up with something like the camera. But this is something that nature had already created. You cannot possibly believe that something as amazing as the human eye could have come by accident or by random chance. On the other side of the aisle, the scientists who do not subscribe to intelligent design will explain that the eye did not come about as a complete design, that initially it was nothing more than a cell that was sensitive to light, that became more and more complex over millions of years, until eventually it became the eye that we know today. Every step is gradual. Now, this goes on and on and on, but I can tell you that intelligent design, the expression, is not a really good description of the intelligence that we actually observe in nature or in evolution. Why? Because while there are many amazing examples of creative design, many intricacies that we still don't understand, what we do understand is that many of the designs that we witness, that we bear witness to, are not great designs. So how can I say that? Isn't this a little bit blasphemous? Well, no, it's not. From a human intelligence perspective, I can look at things, and even if I haven't got it completely figured out, I can still see where things can use improvement. For example, human beings have the same passage for both air and food. This makes it possible for a human being to choke to death from food blocking the airway. So, question, what physical law is there that would prevent the design of a biological entity with a separate passageway for food, for digestion, and another one dedicated to air? Right off the bat, that will be a superior design. And it doesn't take me any more than a minute to figure it out. There are many other aspects to biological entities, human beings included, that leave much to be desired. So human beings, the human body, is by no means as efficient as it could be. Not even close. We're not very fast. We can hold our breath for any significant period of time. We're not really good at different things. Many different animals are far superior than we are, and even they are not optimized. So the designer is not really a smart designer. So what if, not mincing words here, not being politically correct, what if we try to make it more accurate and say, well, it's not really an intelligent designer. Frankly, it's an incompetent designer. You still get to keep your ID, but now, suddenly, you don't want to give credit to God for the design. If God comes up with stupid designs. So anyhow, like I said, whatever intelligence that we bear witness to in nature, in evolution, it's nothing like human intelligence. There are certain things that it does that are far beyond our understanding. The origin of life, we don't understand it. And then there are certain things that it does that we already know we can be much better at. So whatever intelligence there is in nature, thus the Tao, not human. It's a vast, universal kind of intelligence. If it's an intelligence at all, it's a non-human intelligence. While you are contemplating that, let's tackle the last question. If the Tao has no emotions, then where does emotions come from? Is Tao not the source? Okay, so here we're assuming that for something to exist, like has to come from like. So we know we have emotions. So if we are claiming the Tao as the source of our own consciousness, which includes emotions, then wouldn't there logically be emotion in the Tao as well? And I think you will probably agree. Yeah, sounds good. Okay. So how come the Tao has no emotions? Isn't that a contradiction? So first of all, the Tao is indeed a source, and we make that statement only because we do it the other way around. What we're saying is that the entire universe seems to be engaged in a continuous process of never-ending creation. That's going on all the time. Therefore, the way of the universe is the source of creation, is to serve as a source of universal creation. So whatever that is, that's the source. We have a name for that. We just pin the label on it called the Tao. So that's how I can say the Tao is indeed the source. And the second point is the more important one. The source of creation need not possess the qualities or attributes of that which is created. So this is not going to make a whole lot of sense initially because the other statement seems to make more sense. Like, in order for a newborn baby to exist at all, it has to come from parents who themselves used to be newborns, who used to be babies. So human beings give birth to babies. Dogs give birth to pups. Cats give birth to kittens, and so on. Something has to come from something else that's like it, that has the attributes. Like comes from like. That seems to make sense. Well, when we look closer at the world, when we contemplate the different possibilities out there, we discover that indeed it's not always the case. So let me bring up a couple of bullets and we'll talk about this. Let me do the last one first. The ancients used to think that there must be a small copy of a tree inside the seed of the tree. That is, when you plant the seed in the ground, the tiny copy of the big tree will grow up, will shoot out of the seed and develop into a full-size copy of the tree. Okay, today, in modern times, we know that's not the case. If you were to take seeds, any seed of any plant, and you were to cut that apart, you get, well, nothing. You get the material for the seed. You get not a tiny copy of the plant. We all know this. So, where does the plant, the tree or flower, where does that come from? Well, it's all in the information that's encoded in the genetics of the plant. So, it's information, not a small copy of it. So now we know that it seems to come from nowhere. Like there was a time when the earth had no plants at all. Shortly after the formation of the earth, there were no plants whatsoever. Somehow, plants came to be. So it's not even seeds anymore. It has its origin somehow. How did it come about? Well, it seems to come from nothing. So the other example, human beings are able to create artificial intelligence that surpass humans. We see this in very specific areas of life. So for a while, I talked about the chess champions, human chess champions, no longer a match for computer opponents. And more recently, Go champion, a game that human beings are supposed to be the best at, no longer the best against a machine. Machines have demonstrated the ability. This is, by the way, from Google. Google has been researching artificial intelligence for quite some time. So they created something that was better than any human at playing the game of Go. How could that be? How could it be that it develops the skills that don't even exist in human beings? Well, I can tell you that I have personal experience with something like this, creating something from nothing. So in college, one of the projects that I had as a major in computer science was to create a program for playing a certain game. So it was a simplified version of chess. So what I did was that I evaluated the board at every level, and then I rounded up all the possible moves from that board position, and then I evaluate all of those. So the boards that show a favorable outcome to the computer player would pass on those values to be decided on, to be compared with other values. So the best board position would be the move that the computer opponent would make. So I gotta tell you, when it looks beyond a certain number of moves, it quickly surpassed my own ability to play that game. So then I could easily see that, I wasn't such a great chess player, but I could create a program that was much better at it than I could ever be. So what about emotions in human beings? Well, the Tao that non-human intelligence somehow gives rise to human intelligence because of the information encoded in our DNA. And part of the human mind is the emotional response that helps us survive and thrive in a hostile environment. So it all seems to come out of nowhere and nothing. So that's why we say the Tao is empty, and yet it contains everything. So sort of mind-blowing, but we have to let go of the of the old-fashioned notion that like has to come from like. Not necessarily true. Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位点传十一鞠躬，斜翻一鞠躬。Well done, everybody. Thank you so much.